Hello, I'm Jesse Kyrus, and I don't believe Roswell was a cover-up. I think it was just a weather balloon.
And I'm Byron Sanderson. I'm a ufologist. I believe Roswell was a cover-up, and I'm here to talk to my friend Jesse about that.
July 8th, 1947 started like any other day in Roswell, New Mexico. But before the sun would set, the silence of the vast wilderness would be shattered and the legend of Roswell would begin. A local ranch worker reported the crash to the sheriff, who then promptly alerted the military. The same day, the U.S. government issued a press release confirming that a flying disc had crashed. That story soon began to change as government scientists began to arrive at the site. A new explanation was suddenly offered up. The military was saying it was now a weather balloon that crashed and was in no way extraterrestrial. The Roswell incident was looking like an open and shut case.
Hello, I'm Jesse Kyrus, and welcome to another exciting discussion around the red table. Today I'm with Byron Sanderson. Byron is a firm believer of a cover-up at Roswell. I myself am not really a believer. I believe something happened there. I believe it was nothing more than a weather balloon. But Byron today, he's going to try to maybe convince me to think otherwise. So you want to give us a little background about Roswell?
Yeah, so we all know what happened in Roswell. It's pretty well known in not only the UFO communities, but in just general pop culture, I guess if you want to call it. 1947, there was an incident at Roswell, New Mexico, that many people just believe was a UFO, and the initial reports from the locals at the time were that it was a strange craft that had crashed, and almost immediately there was a form of cover-up by the government, just stating that they didn't believe that it was that sort of an issue or incident, and that it was a weather balloon.
We can both agree that the official statement from the government was a weather balloon. Can we say for certain it wasn't a weather balloon?
Can we say for certain that it wasn't a weather balloon? Well, that seems to be the question that that every skeptic states, and I think that in all honesty, we can say that we don't have the absolute proof that it wasn't a weather balloon.
Everybody, I'm sure, has seen the photo.
The very popular photo. Yeah.
That it was a weather balloon.
Right, yes. Yeah.
So is that not proof enough?
No, it's not proof enough. I mean, I don't believe it is. I think that we all can agree that there have been times where the federal government feels that it's their responsibility to keep us from certain truths. You can fake anything. I mean, documentation of a weather balloon being on the ground and someone holding it, where's the proof that that photo was taken that day? Eyewitness accounts of the immediate follow-up of the crash were that there was material there that probably could have been misconstrued as a weather balloon. However, it was of a material that they said they couldn't burn, they couldn't cut. It was a metallic, paperish type of material that did not fit what I think anyone would believe was the consistency of a weather balloon.
Do you think it was aluminum foil?
No, I don't think that it was aluminum foil, based on the accounts of the eyewitnesses that showed up immediately after the crash.
Why do you feel that the government would cover up something like this about making first contact with aliens?
My personal belief is that, from the government's perspective, is that there are technologies that would have been discovered at the site that are extremely advanced, well beyond our comprehension. And for government utilization of those technologies, you'd want to keep it quiet, to have time to study it. And then beyond that, if you have any consideration of maybe wanting to release more images and information to the public, once you establish that this technology is extremely advanced, well, I don't think that you want to release that information. It's at that point it becomes military. It's you hold on to it for advancing your own military programs. And I would just also make the statement of, since Roswell, look how far we've advanced. I mean, we have some incredible things that have happened in the last 70 years that technologically you have to scratch your head and say, well, how did we come up with that?
And I believe the statistic on that is like the computers that we get, technology advances every 18 months. Maybe too, like if say something did happen, they covered it up, and you got to remember this, it was when Roswell happened, it was at the dawn of the Cold War. If the government did find something and they had to go public, like you kind of said, now we have to share that, what we found, and then, the spy games would start to happen.
Yeah,
so.
when you're trying to withhold information, you're trying to get the edge over your enemy. In this case, it would be the Soviet Union. You keep that information to yourself. You don't release it. You keep the upper hand through secrecy.
Right. Speaking of the Cold War in Roswell, is that Stalin was trying to incite fear and widespread panic in the United States. And so they took these small, deformed children, put them in a plane of some type, and flew them over the United States, and it purposely crashed. And that's what he wanted to do, was create the widespread panic and a scare. Yeah, and we're kind of seeing with the coronavirus, we're kind of seeing.
That's right.
Maybe that stuff would happen.
Let's face it, Stalin was a kind of a cruel man and not exactly the best person. So you could maybe see him loading some people with some serious issues into but the site itself and the materials that people had found there, and even some accounts of maybe perhaps some remains of some aliens don't fit the characteristics of human anatomy or what we know as materials that we would typically use in an airplane.
Now, a couple of years ago, some photos came about, and it kind of turned the UFO world upside down, and it was supposedly the bodies that were recovered from Roswell, but it just ended up being a mummified body of a child. And do you think that your search for the truth, or any ufologist's search for the truth, they want it so bad that they just skews the investigation?
It does. Yeah, absolutely it does. I think that they, anytime you try so hard to make something real that you're willing to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, that never helps your cause. I think that just look at how many people have done that with the Bigfoot conspiracy over the years, Loch Ness Monster, and then from time to time you'll get footage and information, eyewitness accounts that
it's always
hard
blurry,
to deny.
Blurry footage.
It's always blurry footage. Nobody wants to get the good footage. I think
Bigfoot is maybe another topic we'll cover sometime.
Bigfoot's a good topic. I'd like to look at what's happened since Roswell and some of the eyewitness accounts of other UFO phenomena around the country. There's some great stuff out there and even some Air Force accounts now that are coming out of some things that we're just saying, hey, there's more going on than what we think we know.
So it's kind of like you believe that, there was a time where, the Earth was flat. At one point, we were the center of the universe, and that's what we knew, so we didn't know any better. So basically, like what you're saying, we know what we know.
That's how I feel about it. We know what we know. Our knowledge of certain previously unexplained facts is always growing.
I always like talking about conspiracy theories, and that doesn't mean I believe them, but it's definitely, we should ask, we should question and go, well, where did that story come from? Why is this story out there? So it's always good to question. You don't have to believe it, but a story has to come from somewhere, and it could be just like the telephone game we all play. You whisper in somebody's ear, and by the time it goes through 20 people and it comes back to you, it's a totally different story.
That's right.
But just to kind of sum things up on my viewpoint, you remember Project Blue Book was put together by the Air Force to study any UFO case that was called in. They would go and look at it. And then in 1953, under Eisenhower and the CIA, the Robertson panel was put together, and it was a group of scientists. The panel concluded unanimously that there was no evidence of a direct threat to national security in the objects cited. They also stated UFOs do not pose a threat to the U.S., and 90% of so-called UFO sightings can be explained. How do you feel about that? They've shut down Project Blue Book.
I think the words themselves tell the story. 90% can be explained. I absolutely agree with that. I think I'm what you would call a soft ufologist. I don't believe that every instance of sighting is true, but they left 10% out. There are 10% that can't be explained, and in the words themselves, UFOs are not a threat. They don't say that there are no such thing as UFOs and that UFOs are not a threat. They just say UFOs are not a threat. They didn't say that they don't exist. They said they don't pose a threat. And again, 10% is still left on the table.
Right.
10% of something is still something.
Very, very, very true. Yes. Well, that pretty much wraps things up, and I'm not necessarily a believer, but it's nice. I can see your perspective of things, and that's the kind of the nice thing. Just because we disagree doesn't mean that we can't sit across from somebody or sit down with somebody and have dialogue, try to see from outside our own little universe of perspective. And I can see things through Byron's eyes a little clearer, and it kind of makes a sense. Not like I said, I'm not 100% a believer, but you did definitely open my eyes a little bit.
Right. Well, I think we talked about some great topics.
Byron, it was nice talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Tune in next time for more exciting dialogue on Around the Red Table.